Okay, everybody. I think you started, which is good, but basically, you know, this is the thing called environment in the news, and I expect that you have, you know, read the newspaper or read the television or listened to television or listened to radio and so forth. So basically, I want you to just kind of share what you found out. Maybe, and then of course, you know, there was that one incident. And later on, I'm going to, at the end of the, if we have some time at the end, I want to show you the news item that I found, which was about invasive species. But what the idea is to take that one incident and then kind of expand it out. Well, you know, maybe like the one I found was called rats in Shibuya. And I'll show you the picture of all the rats in Shibuya. It says that the Shibuya is sort of a paradise for rats. And then I was going to look at other sorts of wild animals. Let me just tell you about it. That led me to think about, well, urban areas are not just areas which have only people in it, but there are a lot of animals in urban areas. Some animals that actually belong in urban areas or have taken up living in urban areas. And some of them are a bit ayashi. You don't really want rats, but they're there. But then there are also, because of global warming, there are different types of insects that carrying disease that are coming in that weren't in urban areas before, like mosquitoes carrying malaria and so forth, or dengue disease, coming into areas which are hot areas because of the so-called heat island effect in Tokyo, which makes it easier for these more tropical insects to live in urban areas. And then I thought, well, actually, I know some things happening right in where I live in Inokashira. They're draining the park to get rid of invasive species. And then I said, well, actually, I even know something right here on the ISU campus. There are a lot of tanuki and araiguma, and even though this is an area, you know, it's where you're not supposed to have wild animals. In fact, have you all seen tanuki on ISU? Mita koto aru? Mita? Because you can still, there's a lot of tanuki, and there's even araiguma. And I was going to show you some pictures of that. But basically, and I wanted to go into that whole area of, especially in the development of Japan in the 1950s and 60s and 70s, as more and more people left the village and moved into urban areas, and urban areas got bigger and bigger. Of course, that was taking over areas which were once populated by like tanuki and so forth. And then I wanted to bring you and show you actually that film. Can I just show it to you really briefly? Just the one glimpse of the trailer for Tanuki Pompoko, one of my favorite films, and I hope you like it too. But I wanted to take the whole issue of rats in Tokyo and Shibuya and kind of look at the whole, and then invasive species issues, heat island effect in urban areas, and then of course the development of Tokyo and displacement of animals. And animals, where are they going to live? Fortunately, there are certain green areas like the ISU campus where they're sort of refuge, still around. Okay, and it's a sort of, and then is that another definition of modernization or not? So that's the sort of top, that's my contribution. Okay, dozo, how are our groups doing here? You've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
Okay.
Can we stop now? Sorry to interrupt you in the middle of everything. I can see you have really kind of good discussions going on. And I think you can see, you probably know our course. We're going to start talking about some of the general problems that you've talked about too, like you know, the biodiversity and air pollution. I'll get some reports from each of your group, but I think the idea was to start getting you a little bit interested in, you know, and of course looking at it in the news, that the environment, there's problems all around us. Happening right now, and in the range of issues. But when we come back in January, I want to really look at, say, the agrarian agriculture, and then look at then ecological imperialism. That's sort of the worlds of East and West coming together and intermixing of animals and humans and so forth throughout the world. It's called The Rape of the World, is our reading. The Industrial Revolution, and then looking at the beginnings of industrial pollution in Japan, or living in what is a large urban environment that's going to have, what's it mean to live in the largest city in the world? And then we'll look at issues like Minamata, Fukushima, and affluence technologies. And, the whole issue of technology is quite important here. And then the so-called beginning of an environment movement and so forth. And I hope that this will give you a sort of it's kind of something that's really concrete, that yes, and then we can relate it to these big general issues that we're going to look at when we look at a more global view of environmental history. Now, let me just see from what's your group, what did you talk about? Can I just ask each group to just say a little bit about, something in your group that's kind of stood out as sort of interesting or controversial, or you might want to. By the way, I talked with somebody and they said, how did I choose my topic? I just went to the internet and took the first one. But I said that might actually be the rest of your life. You might have chosen something that's going to really influence how you think and how maybe your whole life might have just been based on that one little choice there. But I hope you do get interested and keep on the topics that you started with and kind of follow them through. You might look at, somebody said, what was that over there, San Diego in 20 years? Was that your topic? Might try to go 100% alternate energy. Great idea. But 20 years from now, check on them and look back and just keep that in your mind. Okay, how about group one here?
We were talking about, we had maybe several issues and themes from our group.
Mm-hmm.
And three of us mainly focused on animal extinction.
Yeah.
Of Yukihyo, and what we had.
What were the animals?
Polar bears.
Polar bears?
And whales. A little bit and what was the name?
Turtle. Japanese form turtle.
Minami Ishigame.
The one that was found on ICU campus.
Yeah. Is it in that picture up here?
Yeah.
It was it there? Yes, good. One of those guys up there, it'll come, There's a whole program about the animals on the ICU campus. Is that what you did? Is that your topic?
So it was like the trading of that species was banned, and before that lots of them were traded, but they're not
Japan export turtles from China.
Mm-hmm.
They're healthy food.
Uh-huh.
But Japan banned this year.
Yeah.
So maybe some people.
So I think the turtle I found at ICU, maybe someone
Travelers that might have discarded it, throw it.
thrown away because of Japan ban to export.
Okay. Yeah. So, but I really like the idea of taking things local, like the ICU campus or Mitaka and so forth. Yeah, good idea. But extinction of animals was a kind of, and I think some other people did this too. And as I said, in about 50 years from now, a lot of the big animals that we associate, like elephants and giraffes and so forth, they're not going to be in the wild anymore. They're only see them in the zoo. It's happening so rapidly. And remember, I showed you an article about the use of elephant tusk for ivory and the role that Japan is playing in that. Even the Japanese aren't out there killing the elephants, but since there is a market available, and actually a lot of that market is between Japan and China, They're actually participating in the extinction of elephants. Okay, extinction. I'm going to move to this group now, right?
So, within our topics, we found that air pollution was a common link.
A lot of you, you find that you all did different topics, but you had kind of links between them. Huh?
So we talked about air pollution and also marine pollution. And we found that even if we try to fix air pollution with more renewable sources of energy rather than using coal, even some renewable sources of energy won't be necessarily great for the environment. And then we also talked about how some countries can't afford to have renewable energy, such as India, because they still have a lot of other issues and a lot of like they can't support their own country yet, so they have to use coal-based power, and almost have like it's almost like the developed countries should take more responsibility because some countries just can't afford it. And somehow China seems to be a prominent country in our discussion. China's air pollution is very severe, especially just last week it reached red alert on Beijing to the point where they had to close down schools and people weren't allowed to drive. And on average it's about 1.6 million people are dying of air pollution. And so, what else did we say? But air pollution is almost a topic that we won't really think about unless it. Yeah,
it doesn't really always stay in borders either. You know, it's even Beijing. I think there are people who are because there's some terrible things there, but actually parts of the chemicals spread all over the world. And so there are sensors in the United States that are picking up, air pollution from China. So it's a big issue, not just local but global. Okay, yeah, and the interesting thing you mentioned also was that even if you go to renewable energies, these cause their own problems too. May not be the solution. Okay, good. How about this group?
Yeah. But it was interesting how some people link totally unrelated articles, not unrelated, but how different interdisciplinary relations, technology and the environment can. I can see how the future and the past affect each other. I found very interesting.
Yeah.
That was one of the main themes, I guess, in our group.
In technology and the environment, and how technology is both. Yeah, and not always for the good. I think I heard you say that technology can, on the one hand, be the cause, like mass production and so forth, can actually be the cause of a lot of environmental problems, and yet, renewable energy technologies might be trying to solve it, but they're not always, maybe it's. There is a sort of romantic idea that, let's just get rid of all of this technology and go back to living simply on the land and be more natural. But we can't do that, There's really no option to do that anymore. But the connection between technology and environment is the big issue that you talked about here. Yeah, okay. That kind of relates to the air pollution issues there too. Okay, over here.
We had a variety of topics.
Yeah.
Like ice glaciers and.
The glaciers, I heard that somebody, yeah.
And the solar system.
And what?
Solar system, energy.
Solar?
Yeah, energy.
Solar, yeah.
And what we thought the most interesting was the deforestation. And planting trees.
Mm-hmm.
It seemed very good to plant trees because it reduces CO2, but actually it consumes the energy from the soil, so the crops around them can't.
Yeah, I like that idea that, we looking at things a little bit differently once we start thinking about it. And sometimes, you say, well, technology will solve the problem. But then you say, well, actually, maybe technology is the problem. And when you look at it a little bit different, and you say, well, let's plant trees, and that will solve that problem. But it creates other sorts of problems. So it's not so simple, right? That's the thing there. Good. How about that group in the back there?
Yes. Well, we were a group of 4.
Yeah.
And one person came up with the deforestation of the Amazon.
Yeah.
And like how it's eliminating like potential opportunities for us to create medicine. And we just talked about renewable energy, including like using water. And well, him and I, we both were talking about hydraulic fracturing or fracking in the United States. He rather focused on the actual process and how it's like affecting the environment. And myself, I actually focused on how the U.S. automobile industry is being affected by the potential benefits we gain from like the United States holding the shale gas and the shale oil.
Yeah.
Yes, and how it's also affecting the market in the Middle East.
Yeah. Great. You can just see how much. First of all, a lot of the problems are interrelated, but they're also the different ways of looking at it. Like even that shale fracking, looking at digging up the soil, and they basically destruction of the natural environment in that way. And then yet what they're digging up and then what's that causing to either if it's burnt and the pollution, and then it's traded. And then it gets sent overseas. All sorts of issues get interrelated, and pluses and minuses. You just have to really take alternate, different perspectives, different views. So when you're reading the newspaper, read it deeply. It's often you're just getting kind of one-sided view. I hope that when you read the newspaper articles that. Not only did you just say, so desu ka, but you say, oh, is this really true? And do a little kensaku, do some search around it. See what all sorts of, different sorts of dimensions there are to that issue. Okay, good. I think we're off to a good start. Now, next, when we're breaking for the holidays now. And we don't come back until January 7th. There's a reading here, the first great transition. So you have something to do over the holidays as you're having fun and eating lots of turkeys and things like that. No endangered species, please. But that's what we're going to start. And that's really kind of like 10,000 years ago when humans really started to, become actively manipulators of the natural environment. So we're going to go back to kind of year 0 here. And I already put up a few sites here, but it might get added. So keep a lookout on the Moodle sites, okay? I like to look at things from the local area, so I put here animals on the ICU campus, but I also put down here all monkeys in the zoo, Shibuya, and right now, if you happen to be in the Inokashira Park area over the holidays, look at the lake because they're draining it to get out invasive species, but they're also finding a lot of bicycles in the park. And I'll talk about those bicycles later too, because I like bicycles. Okay, thank you very much. See you in the new year. Have a happy holiday.